Robert Spahn says in the chat, Ace is shredding. Actually, you know what? Little story there. This from 2012 was not Ace. That was Tommy Thayer. And as a matter of fact, the lead guitar part was not written by Ace Frehley. And I have the original version of that song. Guess who played drums and guitar on the demo? This may shock a lot of people. Eddie and Alex Van Halen. Yeah, Eddie and Alex Van Halen. This was included into the Gene Simmons box set. And basically, Gene ended up going and telling Ace and Peter to play it exactly like Ed and Alex did on that. Nice little piece of history there that a lot of people don't know about in terms of that song. But yeah, that performance right there was actually Tommy Thayer going and playing guitar on that. Not Ace Frehley, but yet, you know, he's wearing the Ace makeup. I know that upsets a lot of people and all that stuff. But, you know, it is what it is. And if you had seen Ace in his final years, how it was that he was playing, you would understand why they had Tommy Thayer. You would understand. Robert Spahn says, I didn't even check out which era was on stage honoring the fallen. Oh, of course. Of course. Totally get it, man. Totally get it. But so, you know, as you guys know, that means that we have a Kiss story to get to. And so, yeah, you know, again, one of the things with Kiss is they are great at keeping themselves relevant and in the news and all that stuff. And of course, they have gone and done it again. Kiss Avatar Base show to launch in Las Vegas in 2028. New songs to be included. In a cover story for the May 2026 issue of Pollstar magazine, Kiss leaders Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons discussed the upcoming Avatar-based Kiss show, which is tentatively scheduled to launch in Las Vegas in 2028. As the yet unnamed Kiss experience will be the first major entry into the United States market for pop house entertainment. The Sweden-based music investment firm, co-founded by ABBA's Bjorn, and I am not even going to try and pronounce his last name, but he's the one who made this happen, essentially. Launched in 2014, Pop House, which is behind the ABBA Voyage, closed its debut fund, Pop House Fund, in March of 2025, raising $1.3 billion to invest in music catalogs and IP. Kiss's deal with Pop House, reported to be worth over $300 million, saw the company acquire the band's song catalog, name, image, and likeness rights, including their iconic face paint designs and their artist share of master recordings and publishing rights. And the thing that just surprises me out of this is $300 million right there. You see people that are not as iconic as Kiss going and selling their music catalogs for over $1 billion. You know, this has happened with a lot of people that have only been relevant for maybe about 20, 25 years that have been going and doing this. And Kiss gets $300 million. And the thing is that I don't understand the reasons why for this. But however, I would also say that Paul and Gene are not dumb when it comes to business. Could it be because of the fact that rock and roll is not anywhere near as prominent as it was in the 1980s, the 1970s when they started out, the 1980s, the 1990s, and the early 2000s? Could that be the reason? It's all this computer-based program stuff, schlock that ends up you hear on the radio nowadays in the top 40 that all sounds basically exactly the same. And a lot of these singers that have speech impediments, if you ask me, that's what it is that you totally end up hearing nowadays. And that is the trend. That is the things that are selling for $1 billion in terms of their catalog and all this. But in terms of the ABBA Voyage, That thing got rave reviews. ABBA got back together. I think they even recorded new music. And what they ended up doing is they ended up doing the songs behind the curtain with the avatars going and performing as their younger selves. And people were talking about how great it was. Now, that was what? Like maybe 3-4 years ago, somewhere around there. 3-4 years. So this technology, by the time it's at 2028, is going to be far above that of where it is then and the rave reviews that it got then. So, the thing is, this is very much out of the norm. And we'll go back to the article here in just a moment. We'll go back to the article. I'm going to minimize this. But this is something that, there's been things like this being done with the holograms. They ended up having Tupac come out for, what was it, Coachella or something like that? It may not have been Coachella. It might have been something Coachella-like. But they ended up doing that there. They've done it with other artists as well. They tried to do it with Selena as well, the original Selena, not the new Disney chick Selena. I'm talking about the original, the OG Selena. They tried to do it with her, and they said the Avatar was also going to go and make new music, which was I found to be kind of weird, but that never came to fruition. So this technology is something that has been on the cutting edge, has not been all that great. But in terms of the ABBA Voyager concerts, they ended up getting rave reviews. So this stuff is really starting to get really good. And so my guess would be is that Kiss will be there. The current iteration of Kiss will be there behind the stage playing these songs live while people see the avatars, which is something that brings up a lot of questions. Is that definitely how it's going to be done? We don't know for sure. But if they followed the ABBA formula, then that probably is the way that it's going to be done. Okay, we don't know if it is or if it isn't. But the question keeps coming back to Paul Stanley and the issues with his deterioration in his voice. Okay? That's something that people keep thinking about. Considering that they're also getting the catalog, however, I wonder, are they going to be able to instead maybe go and take concert recordings? Are these going to be a part of that catalog? Notice that Kiss has been putting out a bunch of bootleg things that they have recorded throughout the years on Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff. Are some of those recordings, some of the lesser known, there's not like Kiss Alive 2, 3, 4, the ones that are going to be used so it seems like a real concert experience as opposed to, oh, yeah, that right there is from Kiss Alive, or that's from Kiss Alive 3, or something like that. That the fans may not be so familiar with. Maybe it is something that they never release, and they're like, okay, we have these recordings in Milwaukee from this era of Kiss. And the thing is, with the eras, they're probably going to use the era of Tommy Thayer and, who's the guy on drums? I forget. But anyway, they're probably going to use the current iteration era if they're not backstage. Okay, if they decide to use recordings. I don't know if that is something that has been tied down yet of exactly what's going to be done. I would think it is, considering that there's a contract was given saying that this is your obligation as a band and that you have to be back there. Or maybe that's a point that's like, we're gonna come to that. We're gonna see what's going on with Paul's voice. We're gonna see what's going on there, and we'll make a determination about how to go about it. But then they may just say, you know what, we're gonna use the recordings, but you guys still have to be there for the reason of meet and greets and all of this type of stuff. I don't know. But let's go back to the article here. Let's see, where are we at here? All right. Asked by Pollster author Catherine Turman, which eras of Kiss will be represented in the Avatar show? The current lineup or the original lineup, Simmons said, it's going to be iconic face personas, the Demon, the Star Child, and so on. Who do you want to place in that lineup is up to you. As for which songs will be included in the show, Stanley said, we have all the classics through the years and surprises. Simmons added, you're not going to get all that stuff. And you're going to get all that stuff and also new songs. Okay. So this may answer a little bit of the question here. It might be a little bit of a mix of all of that. Or notice the way that Gene goes and messages this. When he's asked the question, you're going to get the iconic face personas, the Demon, the Star Child, and so on. Who you want to place into that lineup is up to you. Okay? That says to me that is the current lineup of Kiss that is performing these songs, if it's a recording or if it's something backstage. The thing with Kiss is that when you go and you look at Psycho Circus and you look at the tour that was done for Psycho Circus, people were praising Ace Frehley's guitar work on it. It wasn't revealed to many years later that him and Peter Criss, that they only had minimal to do with what was actually played on that record. A majority of it was Tommy Thayer and the other guy on the tour. Ace was having a problem. Tommy Thayer came out there and did the Star Child, or what is it? Not the cat, not the Star Child. Whatever his persona was, he went and up there and did the makeup and all that stuff, and people didn't know the better that wasn't Ace Frehley. Okay, so with Kiss, the lineup for them is always the characters, not the person who's actually behind the makeup. Okay? This is something that's very much out of the norm. And this is an idea that current bands have also employed. Bands like Ghost. You have Tobias Forge, who's out there up front, but then you got the Faceless Ghouls. Okay? So this is important. This is important to understand. So this tells you right here that it is this lineup of Kiss. After Turman asked for clarification of which new songs will make an appearance, Gene says exactly what that means. Written by us, we have songs done. Unlike the ABBA Voyager show, which recreated the 1970s era ABBA concert in a custom-built London arena, Kiss's avatars that appeared in the band's final concert at New York on December 2nd, 2023, were not as grounded in reality as ABBA's digital replicas. Instead, according to BBC News, the Kiss avatars were previewed at Madison Square Garden. The band appears as a fantasy-based superheroes who are 8 feet tall, breathing fire, and shooting electricity from their fingers while floating above the audience. Pop House CEO Jessica Corvanos told Pollster, what crowds got to see at MSG is an early prototype of the Kiss avatar concept. A lot has evolved since then. Of course, it's 2.5 years later, both in terms of creative concept in the show and the avatar technology. We are deep in development with a top fight created team headed by Theory Corp. The team was on set last week testing out pyro effects against a new generation of LED screens that make sure that we max out the Kiss signature flame throwing. The show concept is a crazy 4D roller coaster ride through the hits and the comic books and the personas of Kiss. Kiss will reportedly be the first American band to go fully virtual on stage with its Avatar show. Okay, so now it gets into the history and all that stuff. So yeah, the thing is, there's going to be a lot of people that look at this and they say, you know what? You told us it was a farewell. Now, we know better whenever a band announces a farewell. We know better in terms of what that actually means, okay? Because we've seen this happen a lot of times. But, the thing is that with this, I would say that Kiss are definitely keeping their promise in terms of a farewell, because they're not going to be going out as themselves with the makeup and all that stuff. OG style Kiss. They said that they were going to still be doing shows every now and then for some of these Kiss events like the cruise and all that stuff. This is not a tour. These are like one-off shows and all that stuff that they're doing. The fact is that these guys at their age are not able to keep on wearing all those heavy costumes and to be able to keep doing this. It's not going to be able to happen. But the thing is that the reality is that music never truly leaves you. It never does. So the thing is that they want to be able to still create. They want to be able to still perform in some way until it is that, remember this, Gene even said at one point, at some point, even myself and Paul will be replaced. The idea was to keep Kiss going in terms of recordings and all that stuff. Gene and Paul, however, two of the OGs that were left in the band, can't do the Kiss thing anymore in all that heavy makeup. But you know what? When they're dead and gone and they say, okay, we're done, there could be a new set that come out there and do that. And other bands have done this as well. Other bands have done this as well. People don't know about it. Why? Because a lot of times it's a huge flop. And that could be the case with Kiss as well. When and if that ever does happen, if that's still part of the plan. Jefferson Airplane, for instance, tried to come back about 15 years ago with young members. Not a single original there. Did not go over very well. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat over here in terms of this. He said, I didn't even check to see what era was on stage honoring the fallen. Okay, we just read that earlier. Think they'll use Eric Singer. It's a possibility. I think that he will definitely be used at like the Kiss conventions as well as the Kiss cruises and stuff like that. But for something like this on a grand scale, I don't know, because as far as I'm concerned, it seems that Eric Singer and Bruce Kulick as well remained on good terms with the guys. So who knows? I was still in high school when Kiss had their first farewell. Yeah, so was I. And there was a guy by the name of Jimmy that wanted to form a band with me, but all he wanted to play was Kiss. And he was all about Kiss. Always coming to school wearing Kiss t-shirts. So you know that when that farewell tour was announced, we had to hear about it every single day. And the joke would always be, because he'd be mimicking playing bass and he'd be going like this, and all this. And we're like, what kind of bass does he have where it wraps around? He has to play it around his back like that. Don't quite get it, but but yeah, guys, we got a story. We do give a lot of Kiss stories over here, because every now and then when it comes to the business minds of Paul and Gene, I do often think that I have a little bit to understand in terms of this. And the thing is, one of the things I do want to mention in terms of that is that people who are upset about these Avatar shows, don't go to them. Just simply don't go to them. This over here, we live in a capitalist market, a free market. You're not forced to go to these things. Don't think that it is that you have to. Let the market decide if this is something that can allow other bands to live on past their years. See if it's something that actually connects with the people or not. I think it's a great idea to be able to try something different, something a little bit ahead of the curve. I got no issue with that whatsoever. And the market will decide if it's a success or if it's a failure. So this is a very interesting test in terms of business, in my eyes. But I was saying all that, saying that we, talk about Kiss, every now and then, because of the fact that I think even though I'm not a Kiss fan, I can offer a little bit of insight of why it is they do what it is they do. The next band that we have a story on is a band that we've never discussed on this show, but I'm telling you, these guys are, whenever you talk about hard rock heavyweights, you talk about blues heavyweights, these guys are the ones that are always at the top of the list. Guys, we're going to be talking a little bit of ZZ Top when we come back, all right? So here's my favorite song from ZZ Top, Rough Boy. We'll be right with you. We'll be right back here in just a moment.